Six o'clock in the morning, and yesterday and the day before were the hottest days ever recorded in this country. And what with the River Thames low and clear and generally not fishing very well, I thought what species might feed in this sort of humid hot weather, and I thought grass carp. Got a lake near me that holds carp to 40 pound. This is where I am today, and I'm going to come down once a week and target these grassies by design. It's not something I've done a lot of, but the grassies, you know, you can't stock them anymore, so what's in here, as they die out, they don't get replaced. So if you've got grassies, you need to get on there and have a go now. This lake, as I said, got them to 40 pound. It's just coming up to 6 o'clock now. I got here about 4:45, rods were out at 5. I put a bait boat out there to keep it nice and quiet because there are other anglers here. Just dropped some particles, a corn stack over the top. Within minutes, I had a liner on my first rod. I hadn't even got the other rod out. And then 20 minutes later, my left-hand rod was like a breamy stuttery bite. And I've actually just caught my first grassie from here at 19 pounds. So up to a brilliant start. I'm soaking wet because they do beat you up a little bit in the landing net. But hopefully better things to come. But I'll show you the rigs and the bait and how I approach these a little bit later on. Well, I don't quite believe that. I thought I'd come over to a lake for something different. People know I don't carp fish much, but I thought, you know what, I fancy catching a grassie, a big one. I've been here, not long, maybe rod's out half an hour, and although this isn't a big one, it's a grassie straight away, so I'm a happy man. Hopefully she's gonna be good to me. I don't think she is. Let's get this landing net out of the way. It's come on, baby. This is what they're like. They don't fight that hard, but they don't like quite being picked up. So there she is. I'm not gonna keep her here too long because you can feel them winding up. I'm guessing that's about 15, 18 pound. Cracking fish, something different. I'll show you how I'm doing it later on. I know there's fish to 40 pound or just over in here, so let's hope one of those comes along and graces my net, but that's not a bad campaign. Thought I'd come here once a week and target these, and we're off the mark within 20 minutes. Well, this is pretty unbelievable stuff. It's just, I just thought, what can I go and fish for? The Thames is fishing bad. I thought, let's go and have a go at the grassies. Started with a 19 within 20 minutes of starting. I've had a couple of liners and then just making up some traces. And this has come along. Come on, darling. Be good. Be good, be good, be good. Much easier if there's two of you. But there she is, 27 pound, 7 ounces of grass carp. Absolutely buzzing at the moment. Obviously onto sunning care, the rigs work. Absolutely buzzing with that. Let's just try and there we go. What a fish, 27.7. There's 40s in here. I'm getting there. Well, rods have been out 15 minutes. I wasn't quite expecting this, not the grass he was after, but it just shows the power of fishing corn and particles. You don't have to fish boilies on a hard lake to catch carp. That's one of the stockies, you know, probably about, chunky little thing, about 15 pound I would say. So I'm going to get it back pretty quick because I've just had a line on the other rod, and yeah, I'm pretty confident Sunning House will come along. Cheeky little madam. Well, if you're serious about coming in fishing for grassies for the first time, you really need to make sure your equipment is up to the job, because although they don't fight hard in the water, anyone that's caught these by design or by accident will know when they go in that landing net, they just go ballistic. So the first thing I would recommend is a big landing net. I mean, this lake contains grassies to high 30s, if not maybe a scrape of 40 in here. Most of them are kind of mid 20s, so you need a big deep landing net. In fact, I bring two, because once you've got a grassie on the bank, you've got it in the cradle, you don't want to leave that fish at all. So your landing net's down, you still got a rod out, make sure you've got a second landing net. Another reason is I've had grassies go through the mesh, smash the landing net to bits. So if you've got a bit of mesh that's a bit rotten, a couple of holes, they will find weaknesses. So two landing nets, big landing nets, is a must. Even more important, I would say, than two landing nets is a cradle, a big cradle. Get those fish off the ground, and one where you can take the top over, secure them, because again, they go mad. If you've just got a mat on the ground, even one of those with the sides, I just would not go there. Very important, a big cradle. Get that fish off the ground, one where you can secure it. And also, you've got your retaining sling. So once the fish is there and it's time to take them back into the water, you can easily transport them over there safely. So two big landing nets. A cradle is a must, as big a one as you can. I know they're a pain in the backside to take down, clumsy, get water in the car, but it is a must. And obviously you're retaining, I've got my scales there, I've got my bar, because obviously I need that to lift to weigh those fish, and I've got a little some water down there just to keep everything nice and wet. And another bit of advice is, when you get fishing, first thing I do is I set this station up, because I don't want to get the rods out and then all of a sudden catch a fish quite quickly. The last two visits I've had a fish within 15 minutes and then find I'm having to keep a grassie going mad in a landing net, and then come and have to actually set all this up. So get this all set up nicely before those rods go out. Yeah, it might be a bit of a pain in the backside putting it up, taking it down, especially if you haven't caught a fish, but it will, you know, obviously fish welfare comes first, and these grassies, they can do themselves some damage because they just hate going in a landing net or actually having anything around them. So take my advice, get out there before you go fishing for grassies and keep yourself out correctly. Wow, session number 3, and I'm just settling down to do a night in a different swim just over my shoulder, the edge of this island. There's been loads and loads of grassies showing, so they've slowed up a little bit more, now, so it's just coming up to dusk. I'm hoping they're going to go down. 2 rods are out. Got back leads on this time because the swim's a bit tighter, so if I'm lucky enough to hook one in the night, I can almost forget about that second rod being in the way. Just a quick recap. on the sessions. The first session I just did 5 hours one morning, and after 15-20 minutes I had a 19.9, then I had a 27.7. I also had another opportunity, big drop back, had to whine like hell, but the hook obviously had fallen out. Second session the following week, easterly wind, which there was hardly any movement on the lake, but again 15 minutes the rods were out, and off it went, and I thought, picked the rod up and I thought, that is no grassy, it's taking line. And if anybody knows where I'm fishing, this is not an easy carp water. In all the years I fished it for other species, I've never caught a carp, and one of the stockies came along about 16-18 pounds, so that was quite rewarding. I also had a tench after that, about 7 pound, but by about 7:30 I started at 5. By 7:30 the lake was dead, no liners, and I called it a day at 9. So I've come back to do a night. Everything's set up and prepared, even the camera, even the tripod to take a photo, the tripod, the actual cradle, everything is all sorted just in case that goes off. I'm really confident, lots of fish showing, so hopefully we'll have some footage in the night. Wow, the night passed really quietly. I didn't even have a bleep. Reset the rods about 4:45 this morning, but when I wound both rods in, both had sticks on and branches on. This swim obviously it's very difficult to present some bait, so I'll probably steer away from it in future if I can, but I know it does produce grassies, and after resetting the rods it didn't take long for one to rip off. And there's the prize. Okay, not a big one, 19 pound. It looks very similar to the one I had last week actually. So at least I'm off the mark, and I'm beginning to realise that it's that sort of first light, 5 o'clock, sort of 5 to 7:30 in the morning time that they seem to be feeding. So again, there she is, not quite 20 pound, but grassy number 3. So I'm happy to get a fish. 3 sessions and I haven't blanked yet. Fourth trip, got here about 6, rods were out 5:30. I'm in the same swim I did a night in, that I had lots of twigs and everything on my rigs when I wound in the morning. Couldn't get in the other swim, so I thought, well, you know, I did have a grassy here the other day, but it's 9 o'clock now. I've only had 2.5 hours, but you've got to be in it to win it. Picked up the first rod, and that's what comes in on my line. So chances of catching a fish in this swim or knowing your baits are presented are not easy. So that was the first rod. Picked up the second rod and went, here we go again, another snag. But actually I was wrong, because on the end picked up the second rod and I thought snagged again, but actually a couple of little knocks, head taps, and a tench comes along, my second tench, not a big one, proper old warrior here, an old fish, split fins, big old fins sticking out there. But again, I didn't blank. Great thing about particles is you never know what's going to come along next. I really don't know how good the camera's going to pick this up, but I'm out on my second night, and that one's 18. I'm not too sure what time it is in the night, probably about midnight. Big drop back, winding like hell, thinking I've missed that one, thinking I've got nothing hooked, and then played me about in the margins. I actually made her work a bit harder in the water, so she allowed me to do this. So I'm not going to take any stills, I'm after a big one. But again, one at night time. Let's get her back. Well, I'm just coming to the end of my 5th session. It's not often I spend a night under the stars, but it's been so muggy. I don't think the temperature dropped below 30 until after midnight, and it's going to rise again. I think this is the last day of really hot weather. Bit disappointed nothing happened. First thing this morning I reset the rods at about just after 5, big liner on the right hand rod, but it didn't come to anything. So I can't be disappointed because I'm still going home with a grassy that I caught just before midnight last night. Again, one about 19 pound, and I'm beginning to think, after seeing loads of grassies sunning themselves a few years back, thinking they're not that big, that there's going to be a lot of fish in the upper teens to the scraper 20s with a few big girls, you know, there as well. So yeah, fingers crossed that that one will come along sooner or later. But I'm just going to run through the tackle you need to target grass carp, and the lucky thing is everybody that's ever gone carp fishing with their standard kit will do. Here I've got a 275 carp rod, a 6000 size bait runner loaded with 12-pound line, so you've already got all that kit. And I'm not using a leader. I can see the advantages of a leader to pin everything down, but I'm not doing that at the moment. I do use back leads at night, just because if you hook a grassy, they do fight under the rod tips, but during the daytime I take them off. I'm fishing for liners. The reason I don't fish a leader is some of the grass carp bites are really delicate, just beep beep. The one last night was a drop back, and I just think if you start putting a lead core leader on and back leads, you make those bites even more delicate to spot. Isn't it? So at the moment I'm just fishing for bites and liners, and when the grassies turn up, you will, just like big bream, you will get liners. So as I said, I had one this morning and I was pretty confident the right hand rod would go off, but it didn't. And then just coming down to the rig itself, really simple. Again, as everybody will know with my fishing, if I start complicating things, it's because I've already lost the confidence of a simple rig. And all it is a 2.5 ounce inline lead. I've got the swivel pushed into the lead, and then I've got about 12 inches of 10-pound fluorocarbon down to a size 8. This is a beat point barbless hook. I like the beat point, the inturned point. Once it goes in, it usually stays in. And a longish hair containing, on this rig, 2 bits of real corn and a buoyant artificial piece of corn. That buoyant bit just creates a kind of like a snowman rig, and protects those 2 real bits of corn and just gives it a little bit of buoyancy. So very simple tackle. You've all got the kit. You can go out there, as I say, you've got the alarms, and already you just need maybe to invest in a little bit of fish welfare kit, like a cradle, a second land in there. And the next session, what I'll do is I'll run through the bait and the baiting, and yeah, how I go about catching the grassies, what bait I use, and how you can get the best out of your next session. Well, when you're fishing the particles, you never know what's going to come along. I fished this venue all my life, and I think I've only ever had one accidental capture of a carp. I'm actually here for the grassies, as you know, fishing corn over hemp, and the rod's ripped off straight away. I thought, this ain't a grassy, can't be. really probably one of the hardest fighting carp I've ever had. And along comes this stocky, just under 20 pound, 19 pound, beautiful fish, really healthy fish. Well happy with that. As I say, if I can get a bite every morning I come, I'm a happy man, and I'm keeping my record going. So get her back and hopefully get a big grassy. Well, I've just had that 19 pound gorgeous mirror that made me look a bit stupid. It was a real fit fish, gave me a right beating up. I pretty much knew from the bite that it wasn't a grassy. Grassies are normally drop back. You pick the rod up and you're winding to catch up with them because they come this way. That literally ripped off, and I've got a friend now, Dave, I've just met behind, who gave me a bit of a hand. And it was, it really did fight hard. A very healthy fish, a beautiful fish for the future here. And got it in the net, lovely. You never know what you're going to catch on corn, and that brings me on to the bait. It is really not difficult. Yes, carp anglers fishing for carp using boilies and pellets will pick up grassies, normally by accident. You know, obviously grassies, I've caught grassies on two like 24mm trout pellets, halibut pellets with size 2 hooks for catfish at night. It's amazing how they got them in their mouths, but in general, being weed eaters, they like small items, small particles. So let's just talk about bait. Hook bait, I've mentioned before, is just 2 bits of natural corn with a bit of artificial on the end, just to give it a little buoyancy. Nice sharp hook, that's the most important bit. There's no fish that's swimming in this lake that won't actually pick up a piece of corn, well, maybe pike. But I did have one the other day winding in, so they don't even get away with it sometimes. So just 3 bits of corn, a little bit of buoyancy, just to waft around, and that does the trick. As for getting feed out there, yes, I have to admit, there's only one way really, and that's a bait boat. There's carp anglers here, as I said. Dave's behind me. He's fishing for a big carp. He was asleep when I got here. So I need to keep everything nice and quiet, and I have used spoms and spods before, but believe me, it takes a long time for those fish to come back into your swim after all that disturbance, and I don't have the luxury of fishing many hours. I got here at 6, I'm guessing it's about 9 o'clock in the morning now. I'm going to put my rods out probably for another 2 hours, but 5 hours, that's a luxury for me. So all the time I come fishing for grassies, I'm fishing for one fish at a time, a bite at a time. And if I go home, I think this is my 8th visit, and I'm up to 9 fish now, 2 carp, 2 tench, and I think I've had 5 grassies to 27 pounds. So let's run through bait. The first thing, all my loose feed is based on hemp seed. Absolutely fantastic. You can buy it ready-made like this for convenience. I have in the past got a sack, boiled it up, but the girlfriend hates it. Big carp just lumped out in front of me. Boiled it up when she's at work, but believe me, when she gets home, she knows I've cooked it up, because it's one of those smells that lingers. So if you're looking at a cheap option, you can buy sacks from your animal wholesaler and boil it. If you're gonna do that and start boiling hemp, peanuts, particles, and pulses, look on the internet, make sure you know what you're doing, and do it. If anything, overcook them, because if you undercook them, those pulses and particles swell up in fish's bellies, and it can be fatal. So my advice is go out and buy it if you're doing it for the first time and you're a bit inexperienced on making and boiling up your own hemp seed. Each time I put the boat out, I just put 2 handfuls, handful and a half of hemp. That's it. I'm fishing for one bite and one bite only. If I put any more out, it's obviously because I've caught a fish. But I just keep, like a match angler, just keep putting it out there, just building that swim. I've got 2 bits of elastic on the line that just come off the line as the bait boat's going out. If I miss one, I'll see the other piece of elastic, stop the boat, tighten the line, and then just drop that, hopefully, or near enough in the same spot every time. So I also really rate this, and it's just a really milky pulse and particle mix from Dynamite. Really good. It just gets all that cloud out there, gives them a few other kind of food items like maples, etc. And also as a hook bait alternative, and putting a little handful in your loose feed, are tiger nuts. I don't go for big tiger nuts, I go for the mini ones, small baits, and again just a little bit of foam to give it a bit of buoyancy. And as I said, you can buy your sweet corn, you can get it cheap from your supermarket, but again, I just get these with the pull tops. Great. Sweet corn, that's what I've been using on this campaign sort of thing, if you can call it a campaign. 6, 7, 8 nights, or not even nights, mornings. Or you can buy your particles already made, cooked, no danger to the fish. And your maize is fantastic. So it's all about particles. Yes, you can edge your bets when you're carp fishing and catch them on boilies over pellet and PVA bags, etc. And if you're going to be using a boilie then, and you want to edge your bets and catch grassies, then yellow seems to be the colour. So simple as that. A nice little handful in the hopper, out it goes, drop it nice and accurately. If I'm here for a morning for 3 hours, 4 hours, I'd probably, as long as I drop that and I'm happy, I'm going to leave it. But if I was here longer, I'd probably be working it every sort of 2.5 hours, bringing it in, dropping it back, and just building that swim. So I just let the fish kind of like lead me when it comes to how much bait I put out. So as you saw, the rods, just general carp rods. Rigs, really simple. Just make sure you've got a really razor sharp hook. Check it every time you wind in, whether you've caught a fish or not. Particles, not too much, just fish for one bite at a time, and just build that swim for the duration of the time you're here. And as you know, when the rod goes, you never know what it's going to be. In this lake, it could be a big bream, it could be a double-figured tench, it could be a 30-40 pound carp, it could be a 40-pound grassy. You just do not know. So that's the actual great thing about fishing corn in these days when everything is getting expensive and we have to look after our pennies. I can see a lot more carp anglers and anglers in general going back to baits like bread and corn. So yeah, keep it simple, get here early in the morning. That's the best time. As you see, I'm averaging a bite a morning on what I would classify as quite a difficult lake. Well, another one of my early morning sessions. Got down first light about 6 o'clock. Rod's out about 20 to 7. Literally, not easy to pick up. Behave. And there you have it. Haven't weighed that one at the moment. I would say it's probably going to be about 25 pound. Beautiful fish. Fought a bit harder than most of them, but just to show you, get your time right, your tactics right, and the results will come your way. Well happy with that one. So I thought it was a good time just to give you a brief background on grass carp, native to the Pacific Far East, countries like Vietnam and some of the Russian borders. They are river dwellers. That is their natural environment, big rivers, and that is where they spawn. They don't actually spawn in still waters. But we all know that they're widespread across Europe now and as far away as Australia, New Zealand, Argentina. And they were stocked into lakes, not only for a food source in some countries, but also in lakes like this club lake to combat and control weed, because in their natural environment, that is what they eat. And I was amazed when I read that they can actually eat 3 times their body weight. Now, I think when they actually go into club lakes, nowadays there's much better ways to combat weed, and a lot of the lakes like this one just haven't got any natural weed. So the grass carp do very similar to catfish being predators stocked into lakes. When they go in, when they go into the lakes, they they have their predatory instincts, but not long after that they realise there's loads of boilies and pellets, and they take the easy option and just mop that up. And grass carp are the same. They go into lakes, there's no weed about, they have to adapt, and obviously boilies and pellet come in, but I don't actually use boilies and pellets that much when I'm fishing for the grassies, because they are a bit partial to particles, which I'll come on to later. They're not long-lived either. They're 11 to 15 years again in their natural environment, but I think when they go into lakes they probably slow down, their metabolism slows down. They don't eat 3 times their body weight. I can't see that, because if they did I'd be catching them all the time. But they do like a lot of particles, and when they get on the feed you just can't put enough in. So 11 to 15 years in this country, they top out about high 40s, I think. And the sad thing is that once they go into the lakes, as I said earlier, they don't spawn. So let's say your club lake has got 50 in at the moment, a couple die, you're down to 48, and over 10 years, 15 years, their lifespan, that actual stock dwindles. So if you're thinking of actually going out and targeting grassies, there's no better time now, because if they're big in your water, they're probably quite old as well. And I don't think legally we're allowed to stock them in this country, and they're very difficult to breed, because obviously you need that running water, so they're very expensive and just not viable. So if you're looking at going out and catching a grassies, then I would advise do it in the next couple of years as soon as possible, because they're not going to be around forever.